wanted to tell you about a case study of a person that I know, and I've asked permission to share this. This is not their pictures, but because for me, that really explained the link with ADHD and multiple disadvantages. So we're going to talk about Lloyd, who was a friend of mine, and Lloyd had 4 out of the 5 multiple disadvantages that we think about. He had poor mental health, substance use, misuse, criminality, and job or house insecurity. So I met Lloyd when we were both 29 and going to uni. So when I went back to uni, we were both mature students, and we started uni at the same time, although he was doing a different course than me. And we both started working at the same time in a restaurant to support our studies. I was very open about my ADHD, and Lloyd had told me about his unsupported ADHD as well. He had a diagnosis as a child, but he was not seeking any help for it. Lloyd is very impulsive and hyperactive, a lot of energy, very, very charismatic. He had piercings everywhere, tattoos everywhere, and just his energy was just shining through when we worked in a restaurant and he was behind the bar. So a few things happened. We started working together, and when we had our 3 months probation, we passed probation, so we kept on, this job to carry on throughout our degree. I always remember that day Lloyd went to celebrate that he passed probation because he had tattoos and piercing and he looked a bit different. He found it quite hard. I mean, this is what he told me, to find jobs in a social settings. So he was very happy to have passed probation for this job. He went to sit outside. It was in the summer with some friends. He had a few drinks. It was the afternoon, and Lloyd was very impulsive and just talked about loads of things that maybe you shouldn't talk in public, especially about his sexual practices. He was very open about it, laughing about it. And the waitress that kept serving him, obviously we worked with her, he was making some comments that were not really inappropriate. She wasn't bothered, but might look to the outside as inappropriate. So his celebration led to the table next to him making a complaint to head office, a really long complaint about the topics he was discussing in the middle of the afternoon, the way he was talking to the waitress, and how this was a family restaurant, and they did not appreciate overhearing these kind of things. And because Lloyd was very loud, you couldn't help but be drawn by what he was saying. Anyway, he was fired because of that. So the one conversation led to him losing his job, and he was devastated because he loved his job. I stayed with him throughout university, and there was another occasion where he had a girlfriend, and for a while, and then they split up. And I always remember meeting him outside, coming out of a lecture, knowing there was 250 people on my course and about 100 on his course, and we both came out of lecture, and he saw me, and he ran towards me, and he cried like I've never seen an adult cry that much, very big, sobbing, and telling me all about how he broke up with this girl. And I remember everybody staring at us. Now, I don't care. It didn't bother me. But I remember thinking people were not comfortable with that. The same way people were not comfortable with his behavior at the restaurant. People were not comfortable with him being so emotionally open, crying openly in public. We went to sit down in a cafe and it was full, and he didn't try to hide it. He didn't try to be, he was just obviously sobbing. And I remember thinking, this is why we struggle with friendship. People don't like that. You're not supposed to cry in public. You're not supposed to behave in those ways. And it pushes people away. It makes people a bit wary of you, and people are just not that. Yeah. Alongside that, Lloyd was self-medicating with cannabis and class A drugs. He was taking lots of risks in sexual behavior. And then finally, just before I finish off, he met someone. Within 6 months, they were engaged. Within 8 months, they were married. She lived few hundred miles away in Liverpool, I think she lived. So he left university at the end of his second year to go to Liverpool with her because she was the love of his life. He left all his friends. He didn't have a job. He moved in with her. He left his mum and sister there. He left his course. And I remember saying to him, Lloyd, if she's the one for you, she will wait one more year, finish your uni, you finish your degree, finish it off, and then you go and move to Liverpool. But no, he had to act right now, right there. Anyway, within 4 months, the marriage broke down. This led to him coming back to Reading, being very down and attempting suicide twice. And unfortunately, the second time he succeeded. And he passed away at, I think it was 31 by that time. Now, when we think about the link of ADHD and multiple disadvantages, like I saw that it was like watching a movie. I saw all the behavior that Lloyd was struggling with and how this led to, the lack of friendships, the self-medication, the risky behavior, the impulsivity that led him to quit his course where he was excellent at, to lose his job that he was really good at, to leave all his friends and remove his support circle without understanding that, and betting it all on something that was very uncertain, and that led to him just not coping. And every time I think about all the things we talk about, I think about Lloyd. I did ask his mum if I was okay to share his story, and she obviously said yes. But there were so many steps in the 3 years that I knew him that led to where he ended, and could have led to so many other things that in my head I clearly see as directly linked with ADHD behavior, that for me explains a lot about how you end up there and how, it is so linked with everything we've talked about.